Hello, everybody on the WebEx. This is Brad Walschmidt. I'm a consultant with Nashville Department of Transportation, and we're thankful that you're here to talk about Ronnie Road traffic calming with us. So we're gonna have about a 10 or 15-minute presentation. I know I'm wearing a face mask here in the room. I'll try to speak loud. Can everybody hear me okay? Excellent. If I'm yelling in the microphone, I apologize to you all. Excellent. But I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. So we're here to talk about Ronnie Road. Okay. Well, that's not working. Excellent. So what we want to talk about is we want to talk about an introduction to the traffic calming program. We want to talk about the prioritization and selection process for why Ronnie Road got selected in the first place, the design that we're here to propose to you all for Ronnie Road, and then what the next steps are, the voting process. Because we have a design, but ultimately, if you like this design, you will have the chance in the future to vote yes. If you do not like it, you will have the chance to vote no. We're going to talk about all that here in the presentation. So we say that traffic calming's got 3 E's. One is education. This meeting is a great example. You all have feedback for us. We can also educate as engineers about ways to slow down cars on your streets. Enforcement is definitely a piece of traffic calming. That's police presence, writing speeding tickets. That is part of it. That is something that Nashville Department of Transportation does not have as much control over. So that is a part of it. But we at NDOT, we're the engineers. We can do more with that third part, the engineering. So it's all important, but we here really have control over that third part, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. And so the traffic calming program here in Nashville focuses on residential streets, and we look at physical solutions to try to reduce the vehicle speeds on roads like Ronnie Road. And one thing, it's not just a neighborhood program, it's a street program. So Nashville does look at one street at a time. So we're here to talk about Ronnie Road, and that is the street. And again, we have some limited resources. So the program is one way through funding to try to slow down vehicles throughout Davidson County. So that is kind of a background of the program. There may be some questions that the traffic calming program can address, and we're here for that. There may be some questions that we cannot address. And so we want to make sure everybody knows about Hub Nashville. It is for a plethora of things. You got a tree branches down, or a clogged drain inlet, or if you think stop signs should be up where they're not, that's not a traffic calming thing. It is an engineering study that NDOT looks at, just not us. So 311 or the hub.nashville.gov. We always like to make sure, anytime we can, to make sure everyone knows about this wonderful tool for all sorts of things that you feel like maybe need some attention by the city. So the neighborhood traffic calming program has many streets that citizens have applied for Nashville NDOT to consider. Over 400 streets have been asked for, and the most recent selection, there were 24 streets, and Ronnie Road was one of them. All 400 plus streets get looked at with this pie chart here. We collect speeds, usually one count on each street that we get. And we look at how fast are cars going over the posted speed limit. That's the measured speeds. We also look at how many crashes are happening on the streets, as well as if there are things like schools, parks, things that encourage people to want to be walking on the street. And then also, are there sidewalks on the street? If there are not sidewalks, that means people are having to walk in the pavement. That's actually going to score higher for traffic calming, because there is nowhere else for the pedestrian to walk but in the pavement. So through all this, Ronnie Road, here's some of the data of why we're even here talking about Ronnie Road. You all actually ranked second in the city. Some of you may believe that or not, but you all ranked second. A lot of it was because of the speed. On a 25 mile per hour posted speed, the average speed is 40 miles per hour. That means half the cars are going 40 or over, the other half are going less. We collected tubes back in spring of 2021, along with 300 other streets. They're doing 60? Well, then, pardon me? Oh, sorry. So if they are going faster, you might have been number one. But the good news is you were or not good news, just the fact is you were in the top 24. You ranked number 2. And it's because of how high Parts are going, and I apologize. I said early 2021. It's right up there. We counted April 2022. I forgot that was up there. And so, of course, you all know, you live on the street. We're looking at Ronnie Road between Old Hickory Boulevard through Nesbitt up to East Campbell. That was what was on an application that NDOT received a few years ago, and that's why we're looking at. I do want to point out, I'll make sure everybody understands, the data that we collected is Ronnie Road just south of Diane Drive, but which is kind of on the middle third or the southern third, right around here. So if Nashville had endless amounts of money, we would count more spots. We choose one spot where we think is representative of the speeding. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of where that count happened. So the first meeting, our team proposed many different options for traffic calming. The one that we've proposed are these speed cushions. Some of you may have driven over these in Nashville. They are one of the more common measures. You can see they're black, they're rubberized at the highest point above the pavement. I think they're about 3 inches. They're about 3 inches off the pavement. And then we actually are proposing the ones on the right. They're a little longer. So the photo on the left, you go up, your car goes up, you go down, it's about 7 feet. The whole black thing on the left is about 7 feet in length. The one on the right's 10.5 feet. It's a little longer, so it's not as much of a jolt. So we've proposed that.
It's not as vertical, it's more grant.
So another option that we did consider, but we ended up doing this, is something called a speed table. A speed table is essentially, imagine this black rubberized object, but it's a little longer, it's bigger, and it covers the entire road. There's no gaps. These gaps you see are not there. It's just continuous. One reason why Nashville, that we're usually recommending the speed cushions here, is they are a little better for emergency vehicles. What I mean by that is emergency vehicles have a wider wheelbase. Their front axles are wide enough to straddle the cushions if they're responding to an emergency. The rear axles sometimes are, sometimes are not. If they have what's called dual tires on the back because of all that weight, sometimes they cannot fully straddle it. Their back tires may go up on this little ramp side on the edges. It's still a little less of an impact than if the speed table was there going across the whole road, but it is, compared to the pavement that's out there, it's more of an impact. That's why NDOT and coordinates with Nashville Fire Department to make sure the fire department's aware that these are being placed. The fire department knows about the program. They acknowledge that, you know, what they're intended to do, which is reduce speeding. And I think in some ways the fire department also thinks that this can maybe reduce vehicle speeds, maybe it'll reduce crashes, maybe it'll reduce some of the instances when the fire department or someone's having to come out and help. That's on one call or one or two calls I've been on with NDOT and fire department folks. But that is what we've proposed. And the thought is that cars can typically on a, this is my opinion, y'all. I feel like in my Honda Accord, I can drive comfortably 15 to 20 miles per hour over these speed cushions. But but comfort's relative. Some people may want to drive slower. Some people with a better suspension or bigger truck may be okay going 25 over these comfortably. I'm just telling you in my Accord what I'm comfortable with going 15 or 20 over these. And so that's what we've proposed. I'm going to flip now to a PDF of the actual design, and then we'll come back to the PowerPoint. Let's see. Okay. All right. If you'll bear with me, I got to switch and share my screens again. Okay. And is it showing up okay on your end, Liz, on the WebEx? Excellent. So what we have here is we have Ronnie Road. North is pointing to the left. So we have Old Hickory Boulevard on the right. Then north is going this way all the way up till East Campbell Road. Everywhere you see a C with a trapezoid is basically we're proposing one of those photos. So each C with a trapezoid is 2 of those black rubberized cushions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 locations. 5 between Old Hickory and Nesbitt. Then there's the Always Stop, and then 1 between East Campbell and Nesbitt. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through, we're going to start at East Campbell. This is the location that is between East Campbell and Nesbitt. This speed cushion location is proposed near the 708 Ronnie address. It actually looks like it's a little south of that driveway, so it actually may be the property just to the south. Yes, you have a question, sir.
You're developing this.
Yes, so the question is about a development. The question is that the development to the north side of East Campbell, is the development going to create essentially the fourth leg connection to East Campbell and Ronnie? Is that your question, sir?
Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And hi, Nancy Van Rees, council member, everybody for coming out tonight. If
Excellent. Thank you.
How many units are we talking about? What square footage per house there?
Thank you. So just, oh, go ahead. So just to summarize, the council members provide some information that on the north side of East Campbell, it's a 44 lot neighborhood that will create essentially the fourth leg at the intersection of Ronnie Road and East Campbell Station. Excuse me, East Campbell Road, not Campbell Station, East Campbell Road. So when you say you did a study, we pulled all the data, we collected the speed study. You do.
I've only seen 2 wrecks on this road ever. One straight across from my house into a pole, and one I drive.
So it sounds like from the few of the attendees here that there's not a lot of crashes. I'll keep in mind the speeds were so high. That was probably what drove you all to be ranked, not the crashes. So yes, another question. So you look closer to Williams. In your experiences, there are. Gotcha. Excellent. Sounds like some observed speeds south on Ronnie. Yes, ma'am. Gotcha. Yeah, some residents between Old Hickory and Nesbitt are saying, and I want to encourage everybody on the WebEx, if you do have questions, it is better if you could just type them in the chat if possible, because Liz will be monitoring that. We'll make sure we address any questions you have. I've got about 5 or 7 minutes. I want to be very accommodating, so we can wait or, yeah. Okay, yeah, so here's East Campbell to Nesbitt. Again, that cushion location would be near 708, Ronnie. I'm going to go to the next design sheet, which now we're south of Nesbitt. Now we're going to start going south towards Old Hickory. We have a speed cushion location near 616, Ronnie. We have another cushion location near 608, Ronnie. So one on either side of Williams Avenue. And then I'm going to go to the very next slide, which has 3 cushion locations. One just north of Diane Drive near 601. One south of Diane Drive near 528, Ronnie. And then one just south, or excuse me, just north of Old Hickory Boulevard in front of the 612 address. So in total, that's 5 cushions between Old Hickory and Nesbit, and then 1 additional cushion between Nesbit and East Campbell. And each one of those would be the 2 cushions that we talked about. And here's sort of an example of what they would look like. Kind of if you were looking over in the sky, looking down on them, that's what that looks like right there. So we can come back to this. I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint and just because I want to make sure I address sort of, I want to make sure it's the PowerPoint switch back on the WebEx, Liz. Excellent. So that's the design. So we're here at meeting number 2. And so the next step after this is going to be an online ballot. This program for traffic calming is unique. Sometimes Nashville, the city, they design things, they get feedback, and then ultimately Nashville's going to make the decision on whether it gets built or not. This is a case where the residents on Ronnie Road, you all are going to make the decision on whether this traffic calming design happens or not. That's the online ballot process. So the next step after this meeting, a mailer just like the ones that you got, hopefully that you saw for this meeting that we're here today, something very similar will come in with a key code, a unique ID, or a unique, I call it a password, or like the 6-digit authentication code. You'll all get a unique one to each of your addresses to go to the website, plug in your name and address, that unique ID, so we can match that you are who you say you are. And you'll have 6 weeks once you receive that mailer to vote. It'll take you to a website. That design I just walked through, which we can talk about more at this meeting, that'll be on the website too. You'll be able to actually click on that link and actually view the PDF we were just looking at right here. So after 6 weeks, every property owner, residential property owner along Ronnie Road will get 1 vote. And if you like this design, you want to see traffic calming on Ronnie Road, you can vote yes. If you do not like it, you can vote no. And at the end, NDOT's going to tally the votes. If 2/3 of the residential property owners that vote yes, this is going to happen. If 2/3 of the property owners, if that's not achieved, then the speed cushions will not get built. And we will talk with you all about maybe something a little less intrusive, like maybe some signage or something like that, but the cushions would not happen. So the example I like to give is, let's assume that you all have 100 different property owners. I think it's way lower than that, but let's just use 100. If you have 100 property owners on Ronnie Road, only 10 vote. Let's just say 10 vote, and 7 vote yes. That's 70% of the ones that voted. So a non-response or a non-vote doesn't help or hurt. So NDOT wants to hear from the people who are passionate either way to go into that 2/3 majority of the people that actually vote. And so after that 6 weeks, NDOT will reach out to the neighborhood lead, the council member, and let everyone know what those results were. And then NDOT will order the equipment and it'll get installed based on the contractor's scheduling. That is it for this presentation. We are here to talk about anything and hear comments or questions. So, yes, sir.
One time, says they didn't run. And they had so many cars pulled over, they were having to let something go. It only happened once. It slowed down traffic for a good month. Why can't that happen more often?
That's a great question. So the question is, once there was a police presence near, I think you said Nesbit, right? Nesbit and Ronnie, and they sounds like they got a lot of speeders. So, sir, I will say that is absolutely part of traffic calming. Back to my first slide, that is enforcement. At NDOT, we can't handle the enforcement. So that'd be more like a police or a we can advocate for it, but I mean, I think there's a lot of needs in the county for police. So what I would suggest is if you was a neighborhood, you can make that try to make that request. We are here for the engineering part, which can also help with the speeding, and that's what I can definitely answer more questions about. The enforcement's important. I don't have much control over the enforcement though. Just very honest with you. It can be effective. I'm not arguing. All three together can be very effective. Yes. Yes. So the question is where there are some examples in Nashville of this. So most speed cushions in Nashville are the 7-foot length. That's kind of what you're alluding to. So if you've driven over, I'm going to go back to the picture. If you've driven over something on the left, you've probably driven over a speed cushion that's 7 foot in length. There, and we're looking at some longer ones. The picture on the right is 10.5 feet. There's 2 streets in Nashville that do have the 10.5 feet, but we are looking at them more in our designs. One street is Breslin Drive, Bresslyn, Breslin Drive. It's not the entire street, but there's a part of it that has about 5 or 6 of the longer cushions like that. And then the other one is Huntington Parkway, down near the Nippers Corner area. Today, those are the only 2 streets, but I'll tell you, NDOT is looking at. We're starting to design these a little more for neighborhood streets like y'all's. So those are the 2 examples where you'll see just a little longer of a speed cushion. Yes. Breslin Drive. It's West Nashville. I know it's a very vague answer. I feel like when I've gone there before, I've gone to Charlotte West, where all that Target is, and then it's a neighborhood that's kind of near there. I've gone to the Charlotte West exit, and within a few minutes, I can be on Breslin Drive. But there may be other ways to get there. Right. Yeah. So the question was, I guess I'm going to paraphrase. How do we choose where these cushions go? Oh, okay. Let me see if I can answer this. So the most important thing we look at is how far apart are these cushions going to be? Because if we put them too close together, like in a grocery store parking lot, like we're all going to get really annoyed. That's just too much. But if we put them too far away, unfortunately, some drivers just want to speed, and the farther away we put them, they'll be able to pick up speed easier between them. So we try to put them sort of in a happy medium. The next thing we do is we do look at the road, both the vertical curves and the horizontal curves. We don't want to catch a motorist by surprise that much. So we do try to make sure we're not putting them in a curve where someone comes out of a curve and all of a sudden there it is. I will say, if I could go back to the design, many of these locations, we are going to install a warning sign, a yellow diamond sign that says speed cushions. It won't go at every single one, but it will go at many of them. So it's sort of a thing that's on the shoulder of the road so that people can also see. I think you're right, though, Ronnie. It's not as hilly, but that's still what we do just in practice to make sure that people are aware of what's about to come before they drive over them. I don't know if I fully answered your question, but yeah, so you brought up sidewalks. I will say there's a high demand for sidewalks. We are the traffic calming people. We're not this, but sidewalks are more expensive. There is a high demand. So if you want sidewalks, keep talking with NDOT or your council member. But the traffic calming program is something that if people are having to walk in the street, maybe this can help. We believe this can help manage the vehicle speeds a little better. That's sort of one of the benefits of this. Yes. And Yeah, you're correct. Just to go for the WebEx, East Marthona and West Marthona are streets that will be getting traffic calming in the near future. And you said Port Drive as well, I believe. Yes. I'm going to pause. Liz, have there been any questions on WebEx or comments? Yes, so how effective are they? I will say national studies have shown they definitely reduce speed. The more that Nashville puts these out, Nashville is starting to do more before and after studies. I would say later this year, Nashville will have more data set. As an engineer, I'd love to give you an exact percentage of how much slower cars will be. What I can tell you is cars that are speeding this like the speeds we saw on Ronnie Road, speed cushions will provide a slower speed because cars are having to go over these rubberized cushions. But I don't have an exact number for you. Before, was there any other WebEx? I want to make sure. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I'm going to go to you then. You. Well, she's asked a few, so I wanted to be equal. Yeah. Correct. So let me clarify because I did not want to create any confusion. One moment, please. So the yellow, they're not yellow on the screen, apologies. The diamonds with speed cushions ahead, those are warning signs associated with the traffic calming devices. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This one? Oh, I know which one you're talking about. One moment, sir. I know what it's that one. Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm making some notes because I want to make sure I can respond to a bunch of things. So I'm not texting, I promise. I'm trying to make some notes.
question. NDOT site, and I really, but consider this. Has a lot of cars splitting between Draycroft and Ronnie, ultimately going out. Once we make this an undrivable road, everybody that used to split is going to be wanting to go down Draycroft. Now, the distance between here and 65 is approximately 1,000 feet. There's already a lot of congestion here up to this stoplight. Now, how many people are and trying to get into that center lane to turn left at Graycroft? Are they going to get up traffic waiting instead of going past? This center lane, the turn lane, gets filled up pretty quick with traffic as it is right now. But if you take this avenue away, you're going to double what's trying to go here and get into that lane in 1,000 feet.
Excellent. So you made some great points. I want to make sure I can respond. Yes, I was going to, so many questions. The first is I'll respond to your point here. I disagree with you when you say that Ronnie Road will become undrivable. I'll just say that. Now, everybody will have a vote. So I don't even live on your, I do not get a vote. But I just want to let you know I disagree with you when you say it's undrivable. Now, some people may find it uncomfortable, and some people may be okay living. That's why you all get the vote. Some people may think it's so, but it's in theory, I disagree that NDOT is making a street undrivable. I disagree with that. Now, I would agree with that because challenge is relative. I can't tell you what's a challenge to each of you all, but undrivable is so much of an ultimatum. I don't want to allow that to lay. Yep. I heard that someone asked about, will some vehicles try to just put one wheel path over the cushion while letting other one wheel path go through the gap or the edges? Yes, they will. That's true. It's just, is it still worth having them out there to do something to speeding versus that's for you all to choose. I don't think we'll be recommending that as part of Ronnie Road. Yeah, so the question was, will the speed cushions also have the flexible delineator posts next to them? Well, that's not part of our design here. So you also mentioned that we'd be lowering the speed limit to 15, 20 miles per hour. I disagree with that as well. The posted speed will remain 25. I did say that for me personally in a Honda Accord, I'm comfortable going over each cushion location at 15 to 20. That's my personal comfort level. But I'll be honest, it's natural for me to start accelerating a little bit in those gaps. So I think on average, what we're trying to do is bring the average speed on Ronnie Road closer to the posted speed limit. There will be lower points at the points, maybe a little faster in the midpoints. The other thing is always stop. So I want to make sure I address this also. The question was, why don't we just put some always stops? I think you mentioned Williams, right? Williams was one of the examples. So stop signs are not a sign to be used for trying to manage speeds. Therefore, an engineering study at the correct intersections. Hub Nashville is a way you can request NDOT to study the intersection to see if an always stop makes sense. The reason is that's not part of the traffic calming program is we see two types of neighborhoods. Some that just want always stops more to slow down traffic. And the other neighborhood is the one that has always stops to say, can you get people to stop at them? And that is as a traffic engineer, I'll tell you, one of my biggest fears is people that don't stop at red lights and people that don't stop at stop signs. That's how really bad crashes happen. So we are selective and we get pressure for that. I'll be honest with you, but that is why we only want to put stop signs where they're really wanted. But you can request, sorry, I was at the wrong slide. You can request that at Hub Nashville. That's why stop signs will not be part of the traffic calming design. Over to you, then you.
He was very energetic. He had this motivation. He was
Wow. So you live at 536 Ronnie, and a large truck actually hit your mailbox and moved it. Wow. Wow. Do you know if it was traveling faster? I guess we don't know what caused the crash. Right. Oh my goodness. Wow. And there was one other comment, sir. And again, I don't get a vote. You all get to vote. You mentioned that might there be a different traffic congestion issue on Old Hickory Boulevard from people coming out of 565 if instead of turning onto Ronnie because of the speed cushions, they don't want to drive on Ronnie anymore. Maybe they'll start driving on North Graycroft instead, and is that going to create a congestion issue? Is that correct? Okay, so we have not analyzed that in detail, to be very candid with you. But I think the question for the people on Ronnie Road is, if that's a possibility, is that a possibility you want to vote yes or no for? You know, if the speed cushions might mean some cut through traffic's not driving on your street, you know, and then Old Hickory's at state route, so NDOT and TDOT can take a look at that on the main roads. So it's a good point. Some traffic may choose other streets. They may choose the Graycroft. We just don't know, but it's possible. Hey, so for the WebEx folks, there's definitely some differing opinions, and I think that's great. That's exactly why NDOT makes each property owner in Ronnie able to vote, because people may have different opinions, and the vote will kind of decide what happens. I know there's some other hands raised, and yes. Okay.
Why is it, obviously,
Right. And just to clarify, of the streets that have applied, Ronnie was number 2 of the actual speed versus posted. We don't collect speed on every street in Nashville. So I just want to clarify. I can't say number 2 in the city because there may be streets that don't care about traffic calming that haven't applied that we haven't collected data on. But of the streets that we do have in the database, y'all were number 2. Correct.
Actually, since you helped me on it, $1,000 for you. Your heart moves by. What's your message to the world? Are there any famously athletes that were just work with? I was involved with Lakers versus Clippers. Being a Abdul-Jabbar, I screw up because my first day he was pretty intense. He made it great.
Yeah.
But he,
So I'm gonna go to you, then I'm just gonna go around the room clockwise.
my mom's that type of person. Oh, yes, you are. That's game Sixers, Clippers, and there's Dr. J. This is his son put his hand on my back. I said, why'd you give me so many times? And I said, I don't know, they told me to put this on everybody. Two. And he goes, five. Travel. What's the name? Egypt. Forgot about it. Like, later on in life, I had so many opportunities to hire me for a lot of money. I would call it. Are there any famously athletes that were
Why would the bus driver?
Okay, excellent. I'll go to you next. I believe so. I'd have to measure it. Yeah, the fire department. They're not going every 50 feet. They're not that close, sir. Yes. That's correct. As I said earlier, the front axle of the emergency vehicles, that's ambulances, that's fire, the front axle is wide enough where the vehicles can straddle the cushion. The back axle usually has extra tires because of the weight. Those are the ones that usually do end up getting up on the sides. I'm going to go to a picture on the sides where it's kind of ramping up. So they will slow down some compared to what they go over, which is smooth pavement now. That's true. It's not as much as if we did a full speed table over the pavement, but it is going to be more, a little bit more. I don't have a number for you. Well, we're only here because a resident applied for it. So you all also have a skin in the game, and you ultimately have the vote. So everyone has skin in the game when it comes to what we want to do with Ronnie Road. Your point's fair, and I have, unlike earlier when I disagreed, I don't have any disagreement with anything you said. Back quarter, I was going to work my way around the room. Yes.
I understand you are frustrated, and I understand you are problematic. I want to turn my attention to Jeffrey. So, Jeffrey, are you all right?
I just want to apologize for this. Like, I know it's something that I do.
Right. So the question for the WebEx group is, if the cushions are successful and get installed, but the street decides, you know what, we didn't like this, bad idea. What's the process for getting them removed? And then the other part of your question was, who pays for that removal? Did I get it right? Okay. I'll admit, I do not know what our policy says verbatim. You may have it in front of you. I do know there's a process. It is a certain number of years. It may be 2 years after they get installed. I can't remember the time, but there is a certain number of years. So, is it 2 years? It's me. Okay. So I believe it's 2 years. I do not know what that process looks like because, quite honestly, I don't think we've had any streets actually want them removed. But I need to go talk with my NDOT group because I don't know if it's written down. And if it's not written down, it needs to be. And so that's my takeaway. Our action item is Liz and I to go through, and when we have our weekly call with the NDOT engineers on Wednesday, to make sure that that is written out. I believe it's 2 years. I think that's in the policy, but I don't know if the exact process is. I would think it would be something similar. I would think, I'm speculating, that's dangerous in front of a room of neighbors, but I would think there'd be another meeting to talk about what's about to happen and then a similar mailing and voting process. I don't think Nashville would just say, oh, one person wants them. Because if that was the case, then they'd already be out here because one person applied for it. I would think it'd be a vote, but let me make that an action item to get back with you, council member, if that's okay, so we can make sure we get that info straight. Yes, sir. Nashville, they were on April 19th, 2022. Okay. And I bet the data would support what you just said. I bet it says there's not 50 an hour. Because usually during the rush hour it's higher, and during the nighttime hours. So I bet that was what. What other questions or feedback? Yes. So the application was signed by a few people, including the Ronnie. So that's why Ronnie, that's one of the rules is that if there's a street on the application, at least one person from that street needs to be on the application. Yeah. Real quick, I want to check, are there any questions or comments from the WebEx, Liz? Okay, great. I'm trying to repeat the questions here for the WebEx crew. I'm going to go to the back and then I'll come to you, council member. And after the first meeting, I think NDOT took a look at it, and the intent is to keep it as shown all the way to East Campbell. So the vote will be from Old Hickory through Nesbit to East Campbell. So that was discussed after meeting number 1, but that is the decision that NDOT and the traffic calming team that we're going for the vote. Yeah, I'm gonna go to you then, Councilmember, or your Councilmember, do you want to speak? And before I get to you, before I get to you, could you repeat that?
See, that could be a very good selling point. It's a lot safer now since we put those up.
So the question for the WebEx crew is, will speed cushions have an impact on property values? To my knowledge, there's not studies or data that support that, but in the room, there's different opinions on what it could do for property values. So what I'm hearing again for the WebEx group, I want to summarize, each person has their own perspective. Each person has their own opinion, which is why this voting process, there will be one more mailer coming to y'all's mailboxes if you're a property owner on Ronnie Road. And so that is why everyone will get the chance to vote during a 6-week voting period. So I just want to summarize for WebEx, just lots of good discussion, sort of an indication of why NDOT does it this way. There are a few more questions or comments. I'll go to you, then I'll go to you. Yes, the results are shared up probably with usually the person whose name is on the application and the council member, and then it's up to that person and or the council member to distribute to the neighborhood, however communications normally happen. Well, that's why the internet and software tools are very helpful, because it's yes. Gotcha. So yeah, I don't know what results you have, but what I can say is that that's why each mailer will have it's a 6 or 7 digit alphanumeric independent, so that everybody who gets someone to their mailbox will have a different code. We can check that to make sure that if you vote at your address, okay, does that match the alphanumeric code that would have gone to your address? And then we do have there's an internet, it's an internet tool You don't want me counting the votes. I'm a human. I'm going to make mistakes because I'm a human. But we do have that. And then as a human is going back and checking to make sure that we're also making, I'm just pointing you out just because also making sure that we don't see 15 votes from you. We're also making sure that we, or 15 votes from anybody for that matter. I just made that number, but if that is the magic number, then that's, yeah, I just do the math. It's true. Yes. Another good question. So what if this voting happens and the answer is no? What happens then? Speed cushions will not happen on your street. That's the first thing. The second thing is NDOT will come back to the council member or the neighborhood leads and say, do you want something like more signs? There wouldn't be anything in the road. Do you want more signs? Maybe the radar feedback signs that flash your speed if you're going too fast. Or do you want nothing at all? Now, NDOT doesn't want to walk away because you all have some high speeds. So, because the smaller things can help, but the things in the road do have more effectiveness as far as lowering speeds. And so the other part of your question is, again, I do not have the manual memorized. There is a sunshine. There's a time of which a failed vote, it may be 2 years. Please don't quote me on that. It's some number of years also where Ronnie Road cannot apply for traffic calming again after a failed vote until it's 2 years or it's 3 years. I can't recall. It's not a forever thing, but it is because, yeah. So that is kind of what a failed vote would then result in. Yes, another question, and I'll come to you. The ballots could go out in the mail later this week or early next week. So I would say definitely by next Friday. What is that, February 3rd? I would think you'd be seeing in your mailboxes by that February 3rd, if not a few days sooner. Okay, and then you had a question. Do you mind either now or in private if you don't want to say out loud? Can I talk to you about what your address is? I want to fix 622 Ronnie. And are you the property owner? Yeah, we'll have to Yep. Brightly colored. No, that's thanks for that feedback. One of the residents mentioned, maybe a few others, that the card, it's not as eye-catching, it's not as flashy, and I appreciate that feedback because the you getting mailers is only new as of 7 or 8 months ago. Before it was just sort of word of mouth, internet. So NDOT's actually trying to take more control of it to let people know, but that type of feedback is very helpful. So we can share it with NDOT on ways to make sure that people don't think it's junk mail or anything. Did you have another? I want to look at that after the meeting. We don't have to have everybody, but yeah, I want to look into that, see if I can find a reason or if something's happening with the mail. I don't know. Yes. Okay.
Get to know each other.
Yeah. A neighborhood walk. Excellent. Liz, are there any WebEx comments or questions? Excellent. Anything else? Yes, one more question. Yes. My general rule is if my general answer is when someone asks me, I say, I don't know. I'm going to try that first, 311 or Hub Nashville, because someone's either going to get you the answer or they're going to say, we don't really do that, but here's the department that does. So that would be, but yeah, if there's a litter problem, I would try the Hub Nashville. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. You'll see those cards in the next week and a half or so.